All right, let's jump right in, shall we? We're taking a deep dive into the world of squirrel vision.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. You know those squirrels always darting around up in the trees?
Right.
We're going to explore how they see, especially in the dark.
Ah, cool.
We've got this research paper from back in 1974 called Dark Adaptation in the American Red Squirrel.
I'm familiar with that one. Classic.
So we'll break it down, have a little fun with it. But first things first,
Mm.
can they see in color? How long does it take their eyes to adjust to the darkness? And is their night vision better than ours? Lots to uncover.
Definitely. This research is great because it really digs into the mechanics of squirrel vision, like how they see in low light.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, how'd they figure this out? Did they, give squirrels tiny flashlights?
Well, not quite. They had this clever setup, trained wild red squirrels to use levers.
Levers.
Yeah, to dim a light until they couldn't see it anymore,
So, like squirrels running their own science experiment.
basically. It's pretty ingenious how researchers come up with these methods.
Totally. And what'd they find out? Squirrels got super night vision.
Not exactly superhero vision, but they do have something called duplex vision, like us humans.
Ah, right, right. Two types of cells in the eyes, rods and cone.
Exactly. Rods are for the dark, the low light.
The night owls, yeah.
Yeah.
And cones are for color and daylight.
Yep, two specialist teams right there in our eyes.
So how about those squirrels? How long does it take them to adjust to darkness?
About 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Wow.
And their vision gets, get this, over 1,000 times more sensitive.
1,000 times.
Pretty impressive, right, for those nighttime nut-gathering missions.
Yo kidding. Think about how long it takes us to adjust when we walk into a dark room.
Yeah, it's no contest. Squirrels are on a whole nother level.
Speaking of levels, what about color? Can they actually see in color?
They can. The researchers used red, yellow, and blue lights.
Hold on. You mean those squirrels I see aren't just seeing in black and white?
Nope. They're experiencing a world full of color, just like us.
Wow. That's incredible.
Though there's one interesting thing. They're less sensitive to red light compared to blue or yellow.
Why would that be? Red's pretty common in nature.
It's a good question. It might have something to do with a yellow pigment in their lenses.
Like natural sunglasses.
Yeah, filtering out some of that red light.
Makes sense. They're out during the day. Got to protect those eyes from the glare.
Exactly. It's a cool example of evolution at work, even in the tiniest details of their eyes.
So they've got impressive night vision, even if it takes a while to adjust.
Right.
But how does it actually compare to ours?
Ah, well, that's where it gets interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
They tested a human, same setup as the squirrels, and guess what?
What? Spill the beans.
Turns out humans have a slightly lower absolute scotopic threshold.
So we win. Our night vision is better.
In this case, yes. But just by a little bit.
Okay, so it's close.
Yeah.
But humans still take the gold for night vision.
For now, at least.
This is so cool. We've learned that squirrels have duplex vision like us. They see colors, and they can adapt to darkness amazingly well.
Absolutely.
But that makes me wonder, why would they need such good night vision?
You got me there.
I mean, they're not out hunting at night like owls.
It is kind of a head-scratcher, isn't it? What's the evolutionary advantage for a daytime critter?
Right. It's a mystery.
And mysteries are fun to unravel, aren't they? But there's also this whole other thing, the rod cone break. Remember how we talked about squirrels having both rods and cones?
Yeah.
Well, this break in their dark adaptation curve tells us a lot about how those two systems work together.
Okay, I'm listening. Rod cone break. What happens there? Sounds dramatic.
It's more like a handoff, really. Think about it. Lights go out. Cones, they're used to bright light and color.
Right.
They start trying to adjust, even though they're not as good in low light as the rods.
So the cones are trying to take charge even though they're not the best suited.
Exactly. But as it gets dimmer and dimmer, there's a point where the rods, which have been adapting quietly in the background, suddenly they're more sensitive than the cones.
Ah, that's the break.
Yep. From that point on, the rods are calling the shots, letting the squirrels see fainter and fainter light.
Like a tag team effort then.
I like that analogy, each one taking over when their skills are needed most.
Did they find any differences in this break, depending on the color of the light?
Good question. Actually, yes. The rod cone break was most pronounced with the red light.
Why is that?
Remember that yellow pigment the squirrels built in sunglasses?
Yeah.
Well, because of that filtering, the cones are less sensitive to red to begin with, so when it gets dark...
Your rods take over more quickly.
Exactly. More noticeable break in the curve.
So the red light test almost gives the rods a head start.
You could say that. It really shows how the specific features of an animal's eye impact how they see the world.
I think we underestimate how complex animal vision is.
I agree. It's a whole other world out there, and we're just beginning to understand it. It really is. And speaking of seeing things differently, there's one more thing from this study that I think you'll find pretty interesting.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. What is it?
It's about how sensitive squirrel cones are to red light.
Okay, yeah, red light. We were just talking about that.
Right, right. So remember, we said squirrels are less sensitive to red light, probably because of that yellow pigment, like built-in sunglasses.
Yeah, the natural shades.
Well, the study found something even weirder.
Weirder. Okay, now I'm really curious.
Squirrel cones are actually less sensitive to red light than their rods.
Wait, hold on. Isn't that kind of backwards? I thought cones were for daytime vision.
You'd think so, right?
Why would they be less sensitive to a color that's, like, everywhere during the day?
Good question. And honestly, the study doesn't really give us a clear answer.
So, more questions than answers then.
That's science for you. Always more to explore. But that's what makes it exciting, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's like opening one door and finding 10 more behind it.
Exactly. So this finding, it raises some interesting questions, like why would a daytime animal like a squirrel have cones that are worse at seeing red than their rods?
Yeah, the rods are supposed to be for low light. It's like they've switched roles or something.
Right. It challenges what we think we know about how vision works, how these different cells function.
So, what are some possible explanations?
Well, one idea is it might have to do with the environment.
Environment, okay.
Think about where squirrels live, up in trees, surrounded by leaves.
Yeah, lots of green and brown.
And leaves, they absorb a lot of red light. So maybe this reduced sensitivity to red actually helps them see subtle differences in those greens and browns.
Oh, interesting. So it's like specialized vision for their home turf.
Exactly. It could give them an advantage in spotting predators or finding food that blends in.
Makes sense. It's like their eyes are fine-tuned for their surrounding.
Right. But there's another possibility, too. It could be linked to motion detection.
Motion. How's that connected to their vision?
Well, some scientists think our brains use the differences in signals from rods and cones to help us perceive movement.
Okay, I can see that.
Rods and cones, they process information at slightly different speeds. So the brain might use that discrepancy to detect changes in an object's position.
So how does the red sensitivity fit into that?
It's still a bit of a mystery, but the idea is having cones that are less sensitive to red light might actually enhance motion detection.
Enhance it.
By reducing the noise from red light, the brain can focus on the signals that are specifically related to movement.
So it's like filtering out unnecessary information.
Exactly. Makes them super aware of any potential threats or, tasty snacks moving around.
Wow, so they've got this built-in motion detector tuned for their environment.
Pretty much.
This is amazing.
Uh-huh.
I never thought about squirrel vision being so complex.
It really is fascinating. And it just goes to show even familiar creatures can surprise us. There's always more to learn.
Yeah, and this study, it's just one little piece of the puzzle.
Right. Definitely. It's just a glimpse into the bigger picture of how animals see the world. And there's so much more out there to discover.
It makes you wonder what it's actually like to see through a squirrel's eyes.
That's the million-dollar question. Unfortunately, we can't just ask them, can we?
No. If only.
But by combining different types of research, we can start to get a better understanding of their visual experience, studies on their brains, their behavior, their environment.
Like building a profile of their senses.
Exactly. For example, we know squirrels are incredible at judging distances.
Which makes sense with all that leaping they do.
Right. And they have a really wide field of view, lets them scan their surroundings for danger or food.
Like little acrobats, constantly assessing their environment.
And don't forget about their color vision. Even though they might be less sensitive to red, they can still see a wide range of colors.
Which probably helps them find those ripe nuts and berries.
Yeah. Exactly. It's amazing to think all this is happening in the brain of a creature that can fit in your hand.
It really is. Shows you the diversity and just the sheer complexity of the animal kingdom.
Absolutely. There are so many ways of seeing the world, and each species has its own unique way of doing it.
I'm starting to feel like we humans are just scratching the surface of understanding animal perception.
I think you're right. There's a whole universe of sensory experiences out there that we can only imagine. And who knows what other amazing discoveries are waiting for us.
Well, I can definitely say I'll never look at a squirrel the same way again. Those simple backyard critters are actually quite sophisticated.
They are perfectly adapted to their world with their own unique way of seeing it.
It's a good reminder that there's always more to learn, even about the creatures we think we know.
Exactly. That's the beauty of science. It opens our eyes to the wonders that are all around us.
It's like we've unlocked a secret code or something.
In a way, yeah. Science is all about cracking those codes, right?
Yeah.
Understanding how things work.
Exactly. And, thinking about all this, it makes me wonder, do squirrels actually see a different world than we do?
That's a great question. One we can't fully answer, of course.
Right. We can't just ask a squirrel what it sees.
Huh? No. But we can use what we know about their vision to make some educated guesses.
So put ourselves in their tiny paws, try to imagine their perspective.
Exactly. And remember, we talked about squirrels having a wider field of view than humans.
Yeah, like built-in panoramic vision. Helps them navigate those branches.
Right. And that yellow pigment in their lenses, it's not just about sun protection. It might also affect how they perceive colors.
Oh yeah, they're less sensitive to red light, so maybe other colors look more intense to them.
That's a possibility. The world might appear a bit different through their eyes. Greens and blues, maybe they seem richer, more saturated.
Wow, it's like they have their own secret color palette.
Maybe so. And think about how that might influence their behavior. Their sensitivity to motion, for instance.
Or like little ninjas dodging predators left and right.
Exactly. Even the slightest movement could trigger a response, helping them escape.
Their depth perception must be amazing too. All those jumps and leaps.
It is. They're constantly calculating distances, trajectories, making sure they land safely.
It's mind-boggling how much their brains are processing all the time.
It really is. And they're doing it all in a brain that's, well, pretty small.
I know. It makes you appreciate the complexity of even the smallest creatures.
Absolutely. And that's what's so exciting about science. It reveals the hidden wonders all around us.
This whole deep dive has definitely changed how I see squirrels.
Me too. There's so much more than just cute backyard visitors.
Right. They're skilled, adaptable, with their own unique way of experiencing the world.
It's a good reminder that there's always more to learn, even about the things we think we know.
Well, I think it's safe to say we'll never look at a squirrel the same way again.
I agree. They're definitely more than meets the eye.
So, to all our listeners, next time you see a squirrel, take a moment to appreciate the amazing things happening inside that little head.
Think about the world through their eyes, the colors they see, the movements they detect.
It's a reminder that there's always something new to discover, even in our own backyards. And that's it for our deep dive into squirrel vision.
Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.
Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep that sense of wonder alive.